Today, we're looking at Birmingham Pen Company's Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple. Hi, I'm an ink guy. And my name's Adam. I said it backwards again. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Birmingham's Pop Art Purple is, as it says, a purple ink. Before we get to the writing samples, I'd really like to look at the sciencey bits. And up first is the chromatography. Now I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, I put it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds and watch it creep up. We see that it does not hang around a lot. Immediately, it flees up the page and it stays a very purple color. It's not made of a lot of different colors. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into the water. We see a lot of that purple stay as a nice heavy line on the bottom, but then it continues to run up the page. This means that it might stay on the page if it got wet. It might hang out a little bit in the pen and take just a little bit more cleaning. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to hold up on the page and how hard it might be to clean out of your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. The highlighter, the ink definitely comes alive, it's definitely moving, but it is not unreadable. Water reactivates it, smears it around the page. Even though I'm not smearing it, I just put a little bit down and dab it off. It is coming right up off the page. We see that dark purple gone and only a light purple left behind. The flush on the other hand, does exactly the same thing. It picks a lot of that ink up. It's moving it completely off. Given more time, it will remove it completely from the page. Now bleach, I don't expect it to hold up against bleach, and bleach is completely removing it from the page. Given time, it will be gone. Now this is a bell curve or a normal distribution for the viscosity of the inks. For the 365 inks I have tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5. Keep in mind that 2.1 to 2.9 is normal. Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple. Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple has a viscosity of 1.65, which we see is a super wet ink. It is in the red, it's getting close to 7, but it is not there, or the 1.7, it's not there. Very wet ink, very flowing. This bell curve is for the average dry time. For the 365 inks I have tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds. And on dry time, 13 to 21 seconds is the normal range. Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple has an average dry time of 10 seconds. That's a fast drying ink. So with it being very wet, it dries very fast. So it's a fast flow, faster drying. It's not a fast dry ink, but it certainly doesn't hang out on the page forever. I don't know that a lefty drag in their hand is going to stop it from smearing, not at all. Not unless you're a super slow writer. But you don't have to wait forever to close your notebook. Now to find my average dry time, I average the dry time of my writing samples with the extra fine and medium nib done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's take a look at the writing sample. I got this ink in sample form, and Birmingham does these neat little samples. They are absolutely neat and tidy. They don't create any kind of a mess ever when opening. It's not an issue that I have with how the samples show up at all, so I'm not going to harp on it. Put something down before you open this up, or you are going to mess up your paper. To keep consistent in the writing samples, I use the Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use the Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at, let's zoom out, let's look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleed, we get no show through. This spot's from the paper underneath when I am writing and I shuffle that next page. I put it on top of the page before and I get those transfers sometimes. Looking at the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We are getting bits of color variation, not a lot of color variation. In the art, I see some color variation in Andy, but not in Warhol. Moving on to the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. It went away, but only 5 seconds to dry. So it's a very interesting purple ink that does dry quite quick. On the medium, no color variation from extra fine to medium. The medium has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. 9 seconds to dry. When we look at these scrubbies, we see that we don't expect color variation on this, and this is just straightforward in this sample because the scrubbies give us nothing. But on the smear test, I do see that I would be able to recover my writing if I did smear it while I was writing, so that's a nice thing. Moving on to Tomoe River. Naturally, no bleed. Naturally, tons of show through. It's just such a thin paper. Moving on to the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. If there's going to be sheen in an ink, this paper is going to give it. It's not here. But it's a nice color with no color variation. Onto the extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. 11 seconds to dry. Not bad for this paper. Medium, same color, same tone as the extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. 16 seconds to dry. Still very good for this paper. We don't expect to be able to see color variation on this ink looking at the Scrubby. And smear, you're not going to be able to recover it. It just doesn't dry fast enough. That ink all just sits on top. Looking at Rhodia. On Rhodia, we have no bleeding, some ghosting, but it's not bad. It's really not. I see a lot more of it on camera than I do in person. I would be willing to use both sides of the paper with this. On the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. Moving on to the extra fine, it's actually a little bit lighter a color than it is in the 1.1, quite a bit lighter than we get with the medium. So we're getting color variation through the pen you use. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no real color variation in the writing itself. 6 seconds to dry, but again, we get color variation from the extra fine to the medium. Now looking at the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. 11 seconds to dry, almost twice the time. Not a bad time to deal with, but twice the time of the extra fine. Looking at the Scrubby, we don't expect to be able to get color variation because we don't get it while we're putting it down heaviest. But if I did smear while I was writing, I would be able to recover this. Doesn't show as well on camera, but in person it does. I'm looking at Strathmore calligraphy paper. It's a laid paper. We have no bleed, minor ghosting. It's minor ghosting. This is not the type of paper where you normally write on both sides anyway. In the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. I correct myself here. I'm saying that, and then right now I'm seeing feathering on the Warhol. Focus. Focus. I don't know that the camera's going to get it. Focus. Focus. Okay. Warhol is giving us, on the W, quite a bit of feathering. And we're getting quite a bit of feathering in pop. Trying. Fighting my camera. You can do it, camera. We're getting feathering on pop. We're getting feathering on the W of Warhol. So feathering will happen. Some of that's going to just be to the nature of this paper. Because of the way it's laid and because you do have a texture to the paper, it might happen. This might not be the best ink to use with a stub. Moving on to the extra fine. In the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no real color variation. 5 seconds to dry. So this is very nice for correspondence. It dries pretty quick. You can turn to that next page without an issue. No color variation in the writing itself. Medium, we do get a significantly darker color than we had in the extra fine. The writing does have a tiny bit of feathering in the Q of quick. I'm starting to see a little bit of it with the C in quick, the K in quick. I see it inside the O of over. So we do get tiny bits of feathering. It's not obtrusive. It's not distracting from the writing. You don't see it and feel like you're looking at a baby bird. It's not like that at all. So there is feathering. There's no spread. There's no halo, no sheen. There's no real color variation, although it is much darker than the extra fine. When we look at the Scrubby, we see that we're not going to get color variation in the writing because there's none in the Scrubby. And if you smear this, it's gone. Just gone. Last one. Limone. Limone paper, definite bleeding. Don't even have to worry about ghosting at that point. But it didn't touch the page underneath. So while it bleeds, it doesn't ruin the page underneath it. 1.1, definite feathering. That looks like some spread. Those letters look significantly thicker than they did on the Rhodia. So we're getting definite spread when it comes to the 1.1. So we have feathering, we have spread, we have no halo, no sheen, no color variation. Looking at the extra fine, on the extra fine we still have feathering. It's small, it's really small feathering. You see quite a bit of it in the G of dog. You see it in the F of fox. That's where it stands out more. The K of quick, the end of the E on the. So we have feathering. It's enough that it's almost a little distracting. My eye draws straight to that G. It just stands out. And I don't know that this is a paper ink combination I would go with. Although 6 seconds to dry. In the medium, still have feathering. We still have spread. We have no halo. We have no sheen. We have no shading in the writing. 10 seconds to dry. Scrubbies, we don't expect to see color variation looking at the Scrubbies because we can't see it there. But you would be able to recover if you were writing with this ink on this paper. I can see the lines underneath the smear. Instead of finding inks that look like Andy Warhol pop art purple, I would prefer to find an ink that will complement its color on the page. I wanted to find a nice pink magenta ink, and I went with Krishna Sakthy. Sakthy? S-A-K-T-H-Y. I'm sure I'm butchering it. Sakthy. It's a very nice pink that leans towards magenta, but very pink and nice with this purple. And before I give my opinion on this ink, I'm asking if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'd invite you to subscribe. Let's add a few extra unnecessary pauses. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing sample. I then put this ink into a different pen for a day and write with it. I then put that ink into the Cross Bailey with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. So what do I think of Andy Warhol's Pop Art Purple? I think you need to make sure you're using it on good paper. If you're not on really good paper, you're going to wind up with a lot of bleed, feather, spread, ghosting, all the nasty stuff. The color is great. Its performance on paper is not the greatest. So now the big question, would I buy a bottle of this ink? I would love to because I love Andy Warhol's work. I can't because I don't think I could get enough use out of this ink because of how it performs on so many papers. Because it's so restrictive in what paper I can use, I don't know that I can just ink it and go. Thanks for watching.